Welcome back to the Red Dice Diaries RPG podcast with John and Hannah.
Hi.
And today we're going to be looking at some of your voicemails. And first up, we've got a voicemail from Jason Connolly of Nerds RPG Variety Cast. Take it away, Jason.
Hey, Hannah and John, really enjoyed your pub crawl episode. I do have to take 2 points away for John using digital dice. We want to hear you rolling real dice.
Told you.
But you had drinks in the episode, so I'll give you 2 points for that. So it's a wash. But overall, great episode. Really enjoyed the concept. And I look forward to going to your blog and checking it out. So keep up the great work. Talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Jason. Really glad you like the idea. We will keep working on it.
And next up, we have Randy Nichols. So let's see what Randy's got to say.
Hey, John, this is Randy Nichols in Michigan in the United States. I've only recently been listening to your podcast. I do love you and Hannah. I love your podcast. They're really good. The people bitching and moaning about different editions in D&D. I did for a while. I mean, I was not a big fan of 4th edition, but I played 13th Age. It's got a lot of 4th edition stuff in it. Who cares? Play what you like, man. I understand it. I didn't see what you wrote, but I heard what you said about it. And you have a right. Get pissed, man. It's okay. Rant. Give it to them. They don't deserve anything less. A bunch of crybabies on the net. You do you, man. Keep up the good podcast. Take care.
Thank you very much there, Randy. And yeah, I've got to admit, I pretty much agree with you. I mean, play what you like. I mean, obviously I'm going to have a bit of a tongue-in-cheek sort of cheeky poke at like 4th edition and 5th edition because I see it as part of like the sort of role-play banter, between people of different editions.
And I am going to continue to mock the World of Darkness.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the World of Darkness. Hannah mocks me for it all the time, but it's all in good fun and in jest. And it strikes me that a lot of what causes these problems on the internet are people either not realising that something's being said as a joke or not being able to take a joke. I mean, how I love older versions of D&D and we poke jokes at the sort of the tropes of that all the time, the 10-foot pole, the henchman getting killed in the dungeon and stuff like that. It's all good fun. Like you say, people should do them and just play whatever edition they want. But also when people are just poking fun and having a bit of a laugh, don't get so bent out of shape about it. Anyway, I'm glad you're enjoying the podcast, Randy. Thank you very much for your call-in. So let's see who we've got up next.
Hey, John, just want to call you about your OSE Advanced pre-release review thing you did for the Player's Guide. Interesting. So I think I have to go back. I think I only backed PDFs of the 2 new books because I only have OSE on PDF, and I'm actually more interested in not including the advanced stuff, but I'd rather get the box of the 4 or 5 booklets, which I'm probably going to have to order from England and pay a bunch of money for or something, or I'll just keep using PDFs. But anyway, so I didn't back the tomes. So I don't know if I have access to the tomes. I think I just have PDFs of the 2 new books. But it's interesting what you're laying out there, and I'm glad you did it. And it sounds like really, once this comes out, OSE is going to handle pretty much all your old school game needs. Let's be honest about it. It'll replace whether you have a BX, itch or an AD&D first edition itch. It sounds like BX is going to more or less cover all those things. Although I'm curious to see if they end up including some advanced combat options to put it closer to first edition Dungeons and Dragons, things like weapon speed and weapons versus armor, stuff like that. But yeah, really interesting. And I look forward to your review of the referee's book, or at least your preview of the referee's book. So talk to you soon.
Hi there, Jason. Thank you very much for the call, and I'm glad you enjoyed the little preview. And obviously, the sort of referee's preview stuff I did is now out, and I've spoke to you a bit about it on Discord since you left this message. And I think the main thing that people should know if they're listening about the old school essentials advanced options is it's not a pure sort of replication of AD&D in the same way that the sort of original old school essentials is like a replication of basic expert edition with just a few things tidied up. The idea of the advanced fantasy stuff is that it takes some of the concepts from AD&D, some of the classes, some of the extra rules, stuff like that. But then it scales them down and simplifies them so they work within the framework of the sort of basic expert version of D&D. So I don't think it'll completely replace or scratch that AD&D itch for a lot of people. However, if like me, you like the simpler sort of basic D&D, but you look at AD&D and you're like, oh, but some of that stuff's pretty cool in it, but you still kind of want it to be simple and sort of BXified, then I think the advanced fantasy stuff for Old School Essentials probably will scratch that itch.
Yeah, I think the core of D&D is 6 stats and a dice roll.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And going back to what Randy was saying on the previous voicemail, if you know that basic mechanic and your GM knows the nuances of which version of it you're using, it's all pretty much the same game once you get down to it. Yeah. And it's not particularly important which version you're using, as long as it's a consistent version for the whole of the game.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen that in my Old School Essentials campaign I'm running at the minute, where I've definitely taken stuff out of like the first edition, like AD&D books, and as you say, love, because it's the same system, just different iterations, it is easy to convert that stuff. But like I say, the advanced fantasy stuff for OSE is about taking that stuff and scaling it back so it works with the sort of BX model of D&D. Anyway, thank you very much for your calling, Jason. Very much appreciated. So let's see who's next out of the post bag.
Hey guys, Jason here. Great episode on the methods. You did a great deep dive into them. Really appreciate that. But I have to tell you, I'm shocked to hear discussion of layout on Red Dice Diaries RPG podcast. I would have never expected that. Anyhow, great show. Keep up the great work.
What can I say, Jason? I mean, I was actually talking to Colin and some of my other OSE players the other day, and they were shocked because I was complaining about a margin being too small in Wolves of God by Kevin Crawford. I was saying the margins are a bit too small in the centre of the book, so you have to really prise it open to read it. And as you know, normally I'm complaining about the opposite and the margins being too big.
Yeah, this is what happens when you have someone who's trained in illustration and someone who's trained in graphic design doing a podcast about books.
Yeah, and what can I say? These sort of things jump out at me, and I'm not so fussed about art in books, as you know. Don't get me wrong, nice artwork is quality, but it's really the words I'm there for. And I think because I'm so focused on that sort of stuff, that margins and page spacing and blank space really does jump out at me. But we're glad you enjoyed the episode about methods. We're continuing to plough our way through the Fiend Folio, and hopefully you'll enjoy the future episodes as well.
Hey, John. It's Kevin over at the Red Caps podcast. Just listening to your episode on Old School Essentials, the referee's tome. I am loving these advanced copies as well. I've also kickstarted the book and have been going through them. And the section I've been reading a bunch lately that I'm really looking forward to trying, because I haven't really done it much before, is generating magical sentient swords. This whole 6-page spread on these swords is very, very interesting and really has the creative juices flowing. I'm wondering, have you used sentient swords much in your games? What are some of the designs that you've made? And if you haven't, what would you create of one? Hope you have a great day. Continue making the podcast. They're a great listen. Talk to you again soon.
Hi, Kevin. Really glad you're enjoying this show. We were looking for something to do for a Monday episode over the next few weeks, so I think we might just add magical swords and sentient swords onto the list. What do you think, love?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as Kevin was saying, I think they're a great thing, and they add a lot of sort of fun and enjoyment because they are an NPC of sorts in a game, but obviously they've got this whole thing, they're also an item as well, so you've got that sort of dichotomy. And let's face it, the singing sword, the talking sword and all that is a fantasy archetype going way back to when God was a boy. I've not used them a lot in my games, Kevin, to be honest. However, I did have in an Astonishing Swordsman and Sorcerers of Hyperborea game I ran a fair while ago now. We did have a sort of an enchanted sword, which was an evil necromantic sword, which was as evil as they come. I mean, it took Skeletor out of the old He-Man cartoons. I mean, I telegraphed the fact the thing was bad news. The The barbarian guy we had in the group, though, he ended up in a situation where he was surrounded by all these like Northlanders, these sort of Viking-style people who'd been their allies, but they didn't speak their language, and they'd had an interpreter, like one of their tribe who spoke the common tongue. And during a fight that they were all involved in, the interpreter got killed. So they were like, oh, we can't understand these men. How are we going to tell them what the plan is? And the sword's like, hey, I speak loads of languages. Just tell me what you want to tell them. I'll tell them what you want. And lacking any, not being like the brightest spark and lacking any other options, the barbarian was like, oh, okay, sword, I want you to tell them this, and laid out the plan. And the sword spiels off a load of Northlander speech that they don't understand. And immediately they find themselves surrounded by these Northlanders, all drawing their weapons, intent on killing them, because this sword, being evil, was like, oh, they've twigged that I'm evil, that they're hesitant about drawing me. I'm not getting used. I'm not achieving my sentient sword goals, because it had a specific goal. However, if I can get myself into the hand of one of these feisty Northlanders who are like, fight as soon as look at you, I'm far more likely to be able to take them over and use them to fulfill my aims. So effectively, it just tossed out loads of like really cutting insults to these Northlanders, and they ended up having to fight their allies off. So that was the most recent example of me using them, where it became almost sort of like an antagonist. Unfortunately, we didn't really get to play it out because, as is often the way with these things, the game ended a little bit prematurely due to like real life scheduling and stuff like that of some of the players. But you know, these things happen. That's just how it goes. But I enjoyed the sort of evil Skeletor sword whilst the game lasted. And the players, every time they drew it, it basically did like the Skeletor laugh, which I had great fun acting out. And the players, every time the barbarian looked at it, they were like, you do realise that sword's evil, right? Oh, what do you mean it's evil? Just listen to it. And it'd cackle away, and they'd be like, yeah, it's definitely evil, and it looks like it's made out of bones. You know, what more do you want? So yeah, I love enchanted swords, Kev, especially the intelligent ones. And as Hannah said, we may look at doing an episode about that in the future. Glad you're enjoying the podcast, dude. Thank you very much for the call in.
Hi John, hi Hannah, Goblin's Henchman here. I enjoyed listening to your episode about I guess using a hex flower to do a bar crawl. I thought it was a fun little thing to do. Actually, I think if I was tempted to do something like this, I'd be tempted to make that bit where often the thief goes and does the intel, and they want to like find out something about the town, and normally you roll 2 dice or something and say, oh yes, you found this rumour or something. I think that might be an interesting way to use this kind of bar crawl mechanism. So, you're going to various pubs and you're trying to find some intel, and so a little mini game to do that. Anyway, it was fun listening to it. Obviously, it's just me noodling on your idea. So, but yeah, fun stuff. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks ever so much, Goblin's Henchman. Really glad you like the idea, particularly since it's you that came up with the
hex flower, yeah.
Particularly because it's you that came up with the hex flowers in the first place. We'll definitely see what we can do to incorporate that idea into it as we keep working on it.
Yeah, things are a little bit crazy at the minute, as I'm sure you can appreciate with everyone's schedule. We do hope to get around to revisiting the sort of bar crawl hex flower at some point when we've got time. So keep your ears peeled. I'm sure we shall have something in the future involving your great hex flowers. So thank you very much for calling in. Greatly appreciated.
Hi John, hi Hannah, Goblin's Henchman here. So I saw that post that went up about your projects on drive-through. I have to admit, I didn't know you had a drive-through page, so I was quite interested to take a little look around. And I think this thing you did with pubs and inns is really useful, actually, because I was looking through some of my old binder that I had from back in the day, and I had about 3 or 4 pubs that I used in that. And it's sort of one of those things that's probably, not very glamorous, but really useful. I wonder whether you'd be interested in leaning into that a bit more. Produce D100 pubs. So one page which does the sort of food and the personalities and all that. And then have maybe a sample of 10 inns at the back. So, different layouts. So, 1 massive one, 4 medium ones, and 6 small ones. Hopefully that adds up to 10. And not to worry too much about the layout of each one, but basically you then pick one of those inns, the roaring boar or something. You say, oh, that's a medium size, I'll use that layout. And I think that would have really good utility, that sort of really useful kind of stuff that's really handy at the table, but maybe, as I say, that all that texture and names is just at your fingertips. Just flick through and pick one, rather than having the sort of mega dungeon, if you like. Anyway, cheers.
Hi there, Goblin's Henchman. Thank you very much for calling in again. I'm really glad you enjoyed the little sort of drive-through, like pub handouts and stuff like that I've done. As I said, I'm not really used to sort of like doing all the layout and everything. I'm sort of dipping my toe into the water of that. So it's my hope to put out some more of these like little pamphlet handouts that are available as pay what you want to sort of get a bit of practice in, and also hopefully put out things that people find useful.
See, I told you should be plugging that drive-through RPG more often.
Yeah. And I'm currently working on a sort of slightly larger adventure using the same sort of layout template and stuff like that. And once I've got that to my satisfaction, I've put it on drive-through, I'll most likely go back to doing some more of the little handouts to put together. And it's my hope that once I've done that and I'm more comfortable with it, and I've got a bit more used to it and accustomed to like what I need to do with that, I can then start sort of elaborating on them and doing some slightly bigger projects. And yeah, I love the idea of effectively having like a booklet that's like a tavern generator, and you'd have like your series of roll tables and, like you say, a couple of sample layouts and maybe like a name table and stuff like that. I've done a few things for taverns before for like the blog, like with random tables of names and stuff like that. But yeah, I'd love to do a booklet with some of that stuff in that you could just have at your table, sort of cheap and cheerful, you can just print it out on your printer or whatever, have it at your table, and you've got it at your fingertips if the players ever decide to go to a random tavern. So thank you very much for that idea. I'm sure once I've sort of become a bit more comfortable with like laying documents out, and I've probably put a few more of the smaller things out, I will look at doing a larger project like that. So thank you very much for the call in.
Hey guys, Jason here. Really enjoyed your Needleman episode. Great ideas and ways to use them. Really could be a pretty interesting creature to insert in a campaign. And it could be a long-running thing, to start off, you have rumors of them or people come across them sparingly, and then more and more, and eventually they have to deal with them. So some great ideas. I know I'm not calling as much as I did before, but still really enjoying the podcast. Keep up the great work. Talk to you guys soon.
Hi there, Jason. Thank you very much for calling in. Really glad you enjoyed the Needleman episode, and we're going to continue ploughing our way through the Fiend folio and putting out these monster episodes. So based on the Twitter polls we're doing, the next one we've got coming up shortly is the Skeleton Warrior, so keep an ear out for that.
What's going on, you two? Awesome episode about wishes. I've only had it come up once in a game. It was a long-term campaign that we were running using Pathfinder. The party had been split up, and one of the characters went down into this wishing well, basically, where they had detected a source of strong magic. He had jumped down there by himself while the rest of the party was fighting like this big battle. He ended up having a one-on-one, like a bearded devil or something. This is a little higher level. Ended up beating it and getting a coin of wish. So he could cast one wish. And what he wished for wasn't selfish. It wasn't game-breaking. It was really awesome. He wished that... So there was like a... Oh, hold on. Got to leave another message. Yeah, so the player had gotten the coin of wish, and his wish was there was a sort of secondary big bad guy. It was actually one of the fathers of one of the characters in the group who was actually a vampire. And he wasn't the main big bad, but he had kind of messed with them a little bit. And he was a real thorn in their side. So he wished, smartly, he didn't wish that the vampire was dead, because that wouldn't have worked, because vampires are already dead. He wished that it was gone. He wished that the vampire was gone. And I thought that was awesome. I didn't tweak with it too much. I moved the vampire into another plane of existence, and then he would like talk crap to the players through mirrors and stuff like that. But it was really fun. And yeah, I really like the advice you and Hannah gave. Anyway, peace out.
Thanks again for that, Joe from Hindsightless. Really entertaining little story. we'd love to hear some more from people about what times they've used wishes and that kind of thing, or anything else that we've come across in our episodes.
Yeah, and I think you made a very good point there, Joe, that you don't have to twist the intent of wishes to make them entertaining. And as we said in our episode, we're great fans of, if the player characters have asked for something that's not selfish or ridiculous, you can just let it ride, as you obviously did in your story, to what sounds like great effect. And I love the idea of this vampire being like banished to some sort of mirror plane, and he's like smack talking them from behind mirrors and stuff like that. That sounds really cool. So thank you very much to all our wonderful callers. It's very much appreciated. If anyone out there listening wants to get involved in the conversation, make suggestions for future episodes, or comment on the ones we've already put up, you can leave us a voicemail message at SpeakPipe. There'll be a link in the description of this show. Or you can send us an email to rddrpgpodcast@gmail.com. Until we see you next time, take care, stay safe, and keep gaming.
Bye.